You're listening to Bold Hearts, Big Moves, the show for female entrepreneurs who want it all: a thriving business, deep self love, and fulfilling relationships. I'm Erin Anderson, and each week we will dive into how to set stronger boundaries, make empowered choices, and show up in life and business with boldness, authenticity, and heart. Because let's be real, the money you make is directly related to the love that you have for yourself and the strength of your relationships. So if you're ready to lead with love and make those big moves with those bold hearts, let's dive in. Hey, my loves, welcome back to another episode of Bold Hearts, Big Moves. So today we're getting back into, how healing trauma helps you create more abundance in your life. Um, and so today we're kind of talking about like the societal trauma and, well, actually we kind of talked about societal trauma last week. But we're going to talk about like personal trauma and then also like the generational trauma today. But just kind of like a really quick recap. I talked last week about like how societal trauma shows up in our money stories, how it tells us things like we have to be guilty for raising prices, that if we want more for ourselves, that we're not feminine enough, that we're greedy, that we need to hide, we cannot be too much, we cannot overshine, etc. And a lot of this is due to just like generational stuff, like societal stuff, where women have kind of in general been not as important as the men, not as good as the men, or women need to be seen and not heard kind of a thing. And now, like I said, with the last 100 years or so, we're having to change that narrative and allow women to really shine. But let me also say this, that the incredible women in the Bible, you're talking about like Esther, we're talking about Ruth, we're talking about Abigail. If you don't know who Abigail is, go read the story of David. King David, this is before he became king and he was actually running from Saul. There's so many beautiful stories of really, really powerful women in in the Bible even, and they weren't afraid to shine. And because they did, they allowed themselves to shine, they allowed themselves to burn brightly, they created a massive, massive impact for their loved ones, for their people, and as a society in general. Another good example of this is actually Queen Victoria. Of course, though, she had Albert by her side for a long time, and while she had Albert by her side, she was another one that really wasn't afraid to shine, and she did a lot of good. Okay, when women allow themselves to really stand forth and shine, we create amazing, amazing experiences. But let's go ahead and talk about like the different types of trauma around our money stories. So we also have personal trauma around money, like, and some of the personal trauma comes from like our developmental trauma, I should say, like sometimes growing up without having enough, always worrying about having enough coming in, right? Or having a cap on our income and there's no cap on the expenses. Like that's a very scary thing, especially I think for women. Being told that you were too expensive, right? Um, there's a lot, maybe there's financial control in relationships. Maybe you had a parent who weaponized money against another parent or weaponized money against you, being shamed for wanting more. being punished for asking for help, and maybe money was tied to safety, love, and responsibility. And so uh, we we probably have had actually one of those scenarios, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, money is like one of those things that I think a lot of people carry a lot of trauma around. Um, I know for me, like, my dad, he he always provided excellently for me and my family, but sometimes at the detriment to his own sleep and the detriment to his own health. And so, like, we take a look at the things that we grew up seeing, maybe in our own homes, maybe it was with our grandparents, maybe it was with our aunts and uncles. Maybe it was something we saw in our church. Maybe we saw it just in the world. Maybe it was on TV. Like, there's so many ways that messages come in to us. And so if we're not careful and we're not filtering those messages, and as a child, we don't filter those things. We're just a sponge. We take everything in. You're probably dealing with some sort of developmental trauma also around money. And how that kind of affects your business, you might have a fear of spending, a fear of investing. Maybe you're underpricing yourself. Maybe you're overgiving. And guys, I have been so guilty of that one, and it is not fun. It is not fun. And that's one of the quickest ways that we lead to burnout in saying that our businesses aren't working. And the truth of the matter is we're just overgiving, and we need to step back from that. People pleasing, that's also another big one I see a lot. These are also all boundary breakers, by the way. Money inconsistency. So maybe your money is coming in and it's going down, and it's coming in and going down, and you've got a roller coaster, and maybe even a fear of success. So those are the ways that developmental trauma can come in and affect your business. Okay. Now, also, one of the things I hear consistently is, I really wish I could make a consistent income in my business. And to be totally transparent with you, that's also something I'm still working on as well. Um, and that's okay. It's okay that we're there. Okay. I want you to understand that. But what isn't okay is that we think that we have to live there. It's a very big difference. Okay. Thinking that we're never going to have enough clients, or we're never going to have enough money, or our business doesn't have the ability to create consistent income, etc. Those are all not truth. Those are things that we may have experienced and bought in as truth. But the thing is if that was true, you would have consistent results across the board with many, many people. But there are many people who actually do own businesses and have a consistent income. So if it's something that they can do, it's absolutely something we can do. We have the same general makeup inside of us. And so if we're saying we're not able or not capable of something like that, well, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot and creating our own story there. That's something that we choose to create because we're not actually checking the thoughts at the door. Okay. So again, use the same framework as we did last week where we talk about notice what you notice. Let's get honest and let's dive into truth. So again, notice the thought. If I make more, he'll be angry. Or if I make more, she'll be angry. Or if I make more, I'm gonna seem greedy. I'm gonna seem et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we keep a cap on ourselves, okay? Just notice the thought, okay? Second, is it true? Maybe somebody is going to be angry if you make more. Okay? Well, then what? Then what? What are your options? What kind of boundaries do you need to set in order for you to be able to have and protect the thing that you say you want? And when we're talking about boundaries, remember, I'm talking about like what actions can you take that are actually in alignment with who you truly are, who God created you to be. Because you suffering is not why God put you here. He put you here to gain experience. Sometimes it does require suffering, but we should not stay in suffering. That is where we need to draw the line. And oftentimes we settle and say that it's enough. I'm never going to have better than this. I just need to be grateful for this. And yes, we need to be grateful for our lives and be as grateful as we can for the situations we're in. Find the beauty, yes. But, and that's actually an abundance principle, but never growing is not what you were put here to do. You were put here to grow. You were put here to gain. You were put here to be, to do, to gain, and to be. And to anchor into that so that way you can anchor into God. To become one with Him in His purposes and His design and to understand yourself the way He understands you. If I lose money, if I lose love, no, sorry. I will lose love if I succeed. That was the next thing I was trying to say. I couldn't spit it out, guys. I'm sorry. But if I lose love, I will lose love if I succeed. Gosh, okay. I hear that one a lot too. People, men and women alike, look at this one and they're like, this person's going to fall out of my life. This person's going to fall out of my life. I'm not going to have this person's support. I'm going to have their, and it's just too hard. Too hard, too hard, too hard. The thing I would ask you is why do you want that person in your life? Why are you dependent upon that person for being in your life? If they want to leave you because you are a success, why do you want that person in your life? That's one of the ways that we bring honesty and truth into the situation is by asking really good questions about the things that we're thinking and being honest with ourselves, like really getting to the root cause. If you just say because it'll be scary, that's not the root cause. You've really got to ask yourself, why would you lose love or whose love would you lose if you are successful? Usually you will find some sort of a fear around or a fear in your mind around that narrative. Money disappears. It's never safe to have it. So that's something else that I hear a lot in some form or another. It's more or less like, well, what's the point? Money's just going to come and go anyway. That I'm never going to have enough. So why chase a dream that's impossible to chase? It's kind of the mindset that I hear. And to be fair, that's been a mindset of mine as well, and probably even I still have some remnants of that. Um, just because it's been something that has happened, but it doesn't mean it's true. There's billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in the world. Why can't we have some? And the truth of the matter is, we will feel more safe if we have it. So again, be honest. What memory does this remind you of? You know, talking about this, if I make more, he'll be angry. If I lose love, I will lose love if I succeed. I can't say that, guys. I'm sorry. I will lose love if I succeed. Money disappears. It's not safe to have it. What memories come up for you? What starts showing up? And what need is the nervous system trying to protect? Yes, we have needs like food, clothing, water, and shelter. Those are really our basic needs. But you might say that I need this person in my life. I need their support. If I don't have their support, then this is what's going to happen. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that you need their support. Maybe that means you need to take different actions. For example, maybe you need to go back to school. Maybe you need to find a community of people that will support you, that will help you. Whatever it is, we get to move towards what it is we want, what we say we want, but we have to get honest first and foremost with ourselves with what it is we actually do want. Because then we can draw a map backwards to where we're at now, and we can start to see like what our steps are that we need to take to get the thing that we say that we want. Okay. Um, what does the younger version of you believe about money? That's a really great question. You know, what did you believe about money when you were a kid? Did you believe it was hard? Did you believe in poverty? Did you believe that you were in poverty? Did you believe that money was hard to come by? Like, what was the money story that you were taught, and why? Why did that come up? So ask yourself what else could be true. You can also ask yourself, do I feel safe right now? And if the answer is no, well, how can you feel safe? You might find actually kind of a vicious trauma cycle right there. Because you might say something like, well, in order for me to feel safe, I need to make more money. But if I'm going to but making money is super hard, I'm not going to be able to make what it is I say I want. And it's just a vicious cycle from there. Um, could it also be that I can support myself? How? We live in a day and age where you can make money online. What would you do to earn that kind of money? Where would you go? What skills do you have that you would share? What skills do you need to learn? Um, money comes back. That is actually a truth. If you take a look at it, money does come back. I know, my husband, he gets paid every 2 weeks. Money's coming back to us that way. Whenever we put value out, value must come back. Now, look for the ways that statement is true. Don't look for the ways it's not true. Look for the ways it is true. How has money actually returned to you? What happened? Get the details. God doesn't give me desires, He won't also equip me to steward. That's a true one. That doesn't mean He always hands everything to us super easily. Sometimes He wants us to learn something. And maybe that thing that we need to learn is how to stand up, speak our mind. And I think as women, we're very scared for that. But when we do, beauty happens. We can take way more inspired action as a society in general when women make their voices heard. So act on truth, make safe investments, have boundaries with yourself with spending. Like, what boundaries do you have for yourself, right? What do you want to be like when it comes to spending? Let yourself want more. Celebrate your wins, allowing the overflow to come in. And it's okay to explore this. It really truly is okay to explore this. Ask yourself questions about what it is you want. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? How do you want to contribute to the world? What value do you want to set out? And how do you want that value to be delivered? These are questions you want to start asking yourself, especially around the money you're making, the business you want to create, etc. Okay. Let's also move into generational trauma around money. And let's kind of talk about like what you might hear when it comes to a generational money trauma. We don't talk about money. I've heard so many parents say that. Let's not talk about money. Or you have no business in the finances. That's another way to say that. That's not for people like us. You can also talk about like chronic struggle normalized. That's a massive, not only is that a generational thing, that is a societal thing. I see that in society nowadays that struggle is just normal. Women are taught to be dependent. We have to be dependent on men, but even if you're married to a good man, which I would even go so far as to say most of you are, what happens if he's gone? There's no guarantee that he's going to be alive tomorrow. What would you do? What would you do? Like, this is actually one of the things that I have been thinking about recently is like, what would happen if my husband was gone tomorrow? Like, how would I support the family? What would I do? Yes, I have degrees, but are those degrees enough to support a family? What actions and measures do I have to take in order to make sure that my family is going to be supported and cared for? Um, Patterns of scarcity. I see that one a lot. Family fear of change. It's not safe to change. Religious misinterpretations around wealth. Well, gosh, guys, I hear this one. Jesus was poor. No, he wasn't. He literally told Peter to go pull enough money out of a fish's mouth to pay for his taxes and Peter's. Jesus never worried about money. He always knew that money would be fine, that he'd be able to have whatever it is he wanted because he trusted in his ability to call it forth. We have that same ability. It's a little bit more difficult, I think, for us to unlock it. Um, but you know why? Like, what would happen if you could do that? Just grab a fish out of the lake, open its mouth, and have enough money for whatever it is you want. What if that could be the case? What if whatever you said actually came true? What kind of faith would that take? Because when we are in a state of fear, we are not in a state of faith. Faith and fear cannot exist in the same hemisphere. And so we have a lot of religious misinterpretations around wealth. We also hear things like, you're greedy if you want more, or we hear things like, money is the root of all evil. And it's actually not, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. What if we could love people? What if we could love them so much that we wanted them to heal, wanted them to feel good about themselves, wanted them to have this thing? What if we loved the Lord and ourselves and people so much that we brought that type of value to the world? What would we receive? And do we trust that we would? So how does this show up in business? A, feeling disloyal for outgrowing the family. We might say something like, well, I'm the most wealthy and that's super shameful. Like there's a lot of shame when it comes to wealth. Sabotaging success to stay relatable, not charging so you can stay affordable. Overgiving because that's what we do. That's just how we do it. That's what's expected of me. I will not be accepted unless if I give, 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 give. When we don't actually celebrate our wins, when we minimize our wins, because we don't want to seem boastful, we don't want to seem prideful, etc., right? and carrying guilt for wanting more. Again, like I said, having money is kind of in generations and in societies sometimes a very shameful thing, but it doesn't have to be. That's the point. So I want you to be thinking about if I make money, I'll leave them behind. Is that one of your thoughts? If I make money, they'll leave me behind. Where did that come from? Know your genealogy, know your generations, and see how those stories show up there, okay? Wealth changes people. Actually, yes, it does. But it doesn't always mean that it changes you to be a bad person. I know plenty of good people that are very wealthy and they do incredible things because they have the ability to do so. Wealth might change you, yes, but maybe it changes you for the better. Women in my family don't make money. That's a big one. What if you could be the first one that did? What boundaries could you set for being a wealthy woman? Let's be honest. What were you really taught? What was modeled for you? What patterns were handed down? What pain were your ancestors actually surviving? Where did this story come from? Again, what were their experiences that taught them that this thing must be true? And then they taught that to their children. You know, I have a good friend who, her husband has kind of some of this generational trauma in his family, and where money never shows up, there's never enough to have fun. You can't have fun with money. Money you just have to work really hard for. You can't have what it is you say you want, etc. And that shows up for him, and he gets really stressed out sometimes. Wonderful guy, wonderful, wonderful man. But what if he believed that money was actually easy? You know, he started a business a while ago and actually failed because of this money trauma. So what else could be true? What else actually could be true? Maybe you're the cycle breaker. Maybe your abundance blesses your lineage, your ancestry, and your posterity. Maybe it blesses your neighbors. Maybe it helps you be more of what it is God created you to be. I can honor my family and I can rise at the same time. Maybe rising actually is one of the best ways to honor your family. You know, one of the things I had to learn is one of the best ways to show respect to my family, because when I was a kid, respect was kind of taught that you listen to your elders, you do what they say, but as a younger person, you have no voice. And again, that's not to shame my family or anything like that. It's a generational trauma. It's something that they learned themselves, right? But I had to go against that because what I realized is respect is actually speaking up. Because letting them live that way does not breed happiness. And the reason it doesn't breed happiness is because it doesn't allow truth to come forward. We cannot have truth. We cannot have happiness without truth. It's not possible. We might have fleeting bits of, oh, that was cool, or oh, I'm super happy right now. But lasting happiness comes from lasting truth. The same thing happens here. You can honor your family and rise at the same time. I can honor my family and be honest with them. I can honor my family and be respectful and be heard. I can. And even though it might be uncomfortable, even though it might be really hard at the beginning, eventually the more you work a muscle, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes, the more natural it is for you to do the workout. Fourth, act on truth. Gotta act. You gotta put forth the actions. Create new family narratives. Build generational wealth. Teach your children a different money relationship and allow yourself to succeed visibly. Allow yourself to be seen actually pursuing your goals, your dreams, to work hard towards something. Because when you are seen doing those things, that's when you start to change the narrative in the minds of your children, and you get to make the decision, is what I learned about money from my generations going to be passed on to my children? That's a really important question to ask yourself. So remember that this is how women move from survival patterns to abundance patterns, is we get into really being honest with ourselves. Notice what's going on in our bodies, in our brains. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings that we're experiencing? How are we acting upon them? Where do those things come from? But this is also why, you know, when you start enacting on these things, like my students do in Bold Hearts, Big Moves, you're going to start creating consistent cash flow, healthy boundaries, freedom from the shame spiral, emotional safety as you grow, lifelong financial healing. Because the thing is in order for you to create all of that, it comes down to understanding who you are, being that person unapologetically. And in order for that to happen, you also have to heal the trauma around it. Okay? So here's the thing, my loves, you're really not broken around money. You are just carrying stories that don't serve you. I'm guilty of that too. I want you to know that I'm working on some of this myself right now. Okay? And it is okay. It is okay. We've got to pay attention to the subconscious. We've got to pay attention to the emotions, so that way whatever is going on in the subconscious can come to the conscious brain, so we can actually rewire our mind to receive the things that we say we want. So, my loves, if the last 2 episodes of healing trauma around money, or really relationships in general, whatever it is, like healing, if that speaks to your heart, imagine what would happen if you had the support applying this every single day. What results would you have? This is what we do in Bold Hearts, Big Moves in the program. We heal the root, we rebuild your boundaries, and we help you create consistent money from a place of safety, truth, and overflow. So if you are ready to move forward, please let me know. Message the show. Hit me up. Okay. And feel free to also share what you're learning with other people as well. Share it on your social media, share it on your Instagram, wherever you need to share it, and let people know about the show as well. See if there's anybody else that can use these messages. All right, my loves, thanks so much for everything. I'll see you next week in Bold Hearts, Big Moves.
All right, Boundary Boss Babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss Babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other Boss Babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the Send Us a Text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, Boss Babes.